everybody, and welcome to the channel Crossing the Spiritual Streams. And my name is Tandra, and today we're going to continue our tarot card reading basics series on how to read tarot cards, and we're going to show you some different layouts and talk a little bit about how different tarot readers will lay out the cards for different readings, and also do a couple of example readings and what those might look like depending on what they were about and what cards show up in them. Before we get to that, I do want to invite you to subscribe to the channel, and please remember to hit this bell icon so you can be notified of future videos when they come out. Also, I would love for you all to put comments in the comment section of any other videos that you would like to see on this topic or other topics, other spiritual topics. Check out our other videos on the channel. We have several tarot reading pick-a-pile readings, as well as other videos in this series, as well as other spiritual topics. Don't forget to share with your friends and family. If you'd like to donate to the channel, there will be a link in the description to PayPal that you can do that with there. So let's get started on layouts. There are many different layouts that you can possibly use, and many tarot readers like to use them. It helps them focus on the reading in a certain way, or helps them know how the reading is going to progress or how it's going to go. And there are lots of different ones available for use, and you can modify any of them that are out there or create your own if you'd like to do so. So there's just so many of them. You can go out there on the internet and just search, and you can find just literally probably hundreds of different layouts, or you can create your own based on your own style or the way you like to read. But we're just going to cover a few basic ones today, different ones that you might want to use. The most basic one out there probably is the 3-card layout. And basically the idea is you shuffle your cards, you pick 3 different cards, either one right after the other, or you might pull them out of the deck, or they might fly out, however different readers like to use them. But you lay them out, and the first card would represent the past in whatever query or question or whatever the reading happens to be about. The one in the middle would constitute the present, or what is going on right now, and then the one over here would maybe contemplate the future or what the outcome might be based on the question. So that's kind of the most basic one out there. It probably would be used mostly for very basic questions, something that doesn't require a more in-depth kind of answer. Now, based on the 3-card layout is another layout that's got a little bit more information involved in it, and it's the 5-card spread. And it has the basic 3 cards here, which is past, present, and future, but then it also includes a card at the top and a card at the bottom. Or the card at the top could be possible outcomes if you follow a certain course, and the one at the bottom is reasons that led to the situation that you're in, whatever the reading happens to be about. So, it could be read different ways, but basically you got your past, what's going on in the present, what has caused this to happen in the present, possible future outcomes if you go follow a certain course, and of course that would be based on the cards that come up and what those meanings are, and then the future. So you've got a little bit more of a answer to your question at that point. Now, another very common spread, and one that's used by a lot of readers, is what's known as the Celtic cross spread. This is the basic version of that. And basically the general idea is that you're going to lay out different cards. You have one here in the middle that represents the present, kind of like the other spreads did. You lay a card across it, which is going to represent the obstacle, or what is blocking what's happening, or what your question's about, or what the reading happens to be about. The one up here is your best possible outcome. Then you also have over here, though, before you even get over here, this is the cause of the current situation. Okay, and then you also have down here is the immediate past, like what has gone on immediately in the past. And this is your immediate future. So this one's kind of backwards a little bit from the way they've been, kind of, because the future has kind of been over here, and in this case it's over here. So, and you can flip that around or do it however is easiest to you. The biggest kind of difference in this one from the other layouts is the obstacle right here across, it's kind of the obstacle of whatever the outcome you want to have, and your immediate past is down here, rather than, possible immediate future or that kind of thing. So it's kind of mixed up just a little bit, but it's a common spread. Now some Celtic Cross readers will also have 4 cards along the side over here, which could be who you are right now, your current surroundings, your hopes and your fears, and your outcome. Notice how a lot of these, the top one is like the outcome or the conclusion or whatever. It's kind of interesting that they kind of put that towards the top, or reaching the top level. Okay, another common spread is the horseshoe spread. It kind of sort of symbolizes around horseshoe, kind of the way you can do it with cards so much. And these kind of follow a progression. You start off with your past, you go to your present. This would show your influences that are happening in the circumstances right now. These would be your obstacles. Your obstacles are kind of right in the middle. Then we kind of go on with extreme influences. So you have influences over here, and then these are just like really major influences. And possibly attitudes of others towards this situation. Then this would be your best course of action that you should take. And then this is your outcome over here on the far right. So, that's kind of the progression that those cards go in. Another spread that some people like to use is what's known as the zodiac spread. Basically, it follows the signs of the zodiac. Some people use it to figure out the months of the year, like what will happen this month, next month, the first, like January, February, March, that kind of thing. Sometimes people do that. And then and they might put one in the center, which might mean the whole year. So one card might represent each month. Or if you have some other ways you might do it. If you're doing this spread and it's not based on months or what might happen in a month, some people might take these and go, okay, this is for January, and then this would be early January, and this would be the whole month right here, and then they would do another one for February, and they just take, there's 78 cards in the deck, so you can kind of lay this out, several different times and not reuse the same cards. So some people do that. But if you just wanted to kind of use this as just a general, to answer certain questions or know about like a love reading or career reading or something like that, the first one would represent the self. Then it kind of goes down this way. It follows kind of the counterclockwise. So it goes down. It goes yourself, then your money, your travel, your home, your pleasure and your romance type things that are going on, your work and your health, your marital and relationship, which is directly across from yourself, and that is also true for a lot of zodiac things. If you look at certain zodiac, especially in Vedic astrology, when they do their zodiac, the self and the marriage and relationships is directly across from each other. It's not quite in this particular layout, but it's similar. If you notice that the different houses of the zodiac, these things are following the different houses, like the fourth one being your home. That's true in the zodiac too. So if you know anything about astrology, you can see how this follows that. But then this one's marriage and relationships. And then we also have beginnings and endings up here in the 8th. Then for the 9th, we have your philosophy, your education, your dreams. Then for the 10th, we have career and fame. For the 11th, we have your friends and your hopes. And then for the 12th, we have your burdens, or, those kinds of things. And then the last card would be the final, or the whole year, or the whole outcome. Okay, so that's what different people do. These are some general spreads. Now, the way I like to lay out cards, I'm kind of more chaotic in the way I do it. I pick cards and I just kind of lay them out, and then I look at them as a whole, and different ones will pop out at me and lead me to say certain things or move the reading along in that direction, and then other ones will follow along or lead more along. Sometimes I might need clarifying cards, so I might pull up a deck, but a lot of times if I pull enough cards, and I usually like to use more than one deck, that way I can maybe get 2 of the same card that have different symbolisms on them. Or The world card in this deck might look differently than a world card in that deck, so if it comes up from a particular deck, it might lead me to a certain conclusion, that kind of thing. So I like to use more than one deck. Sometimes I like to use oracle cards as well as tarot cards in with the reading. It helps give the full flavor of a reading. So this one's a little bit more of a kind of a chaotic. It's not really a spread, but it helps me because they're all laid out there at once and I can kind of see them as a whole, and then cards start kind of popping out and going forward and telling the whole story as to how it flows. Okay, now we're going to talk about a little bit about some interpretation examples of how this might work. I picked some cards for a spread, just shuffled them like normal and picked some cards from some different decks here that we've been using as examples. And I went through and interpreted them as if it was for a love reading, and then I interpreted them as if it was a career reading, and I also had a colleague of mine do the same, and so I wrote them down, and I'm going to show you the differences of how they look based on how we've set them out. So here is the cards as they were originally picked. They were just laid out, and this is how they originally came out. And then as I was interpreting, I mentioned that I actually put them in order of how the story's kind of told to me, or how it kind of comes to me. And so this is the order that I put them in and how the story kind of goes. Now this was for the love reading. And the first way I kind of saw it as basically that they had gone through some major heartache and major pain. They were kind of the fool. They were kind of the person that the reading would be for. They would kind of be the fool. This is kind of showing the major heartache and pain that they went through with the 2, 3, and 5 of swords going on here. That's kind of what had gone on. They might have run headlong into this situation. That's kind of also represented by the fool. They also maybe blindly have gone into it. And it was a deep emotional hurt that had happened, that had gone on here. They might have thrown themselves into work, kinds of pursuits and other energies, and they kept searching for a new love, but just wasn't sure where to go or how that might come about. And then it kind of goes into that they are in store for a good, loving, caring relationship coming forward here, kind of represented by these cards here. After they've learned what they kind of needed to learn based on this earlier relationship that they had these cards represent, we've got pages and knights, and so good things coming towards them, messages, youthful energies, that kind of thing, kind of a renewal. And that, by having the moon and the star, that's a very loving, caring kind of feelings, that kind of thing going on there. And then here we've got the Lovers card, so that's kind of showing that they would have this loving, caring relationship. And then the Sun card, because then that just shows getting the full love and abundance and everything that you wanted. So after they learn the things from the past and kind of do that, they can have a loving, caring relationship coming their way. So that was kind of how I interpreted it for the love reading and the way the cards kind of showed to me. Now my colleague, they took the cards and they put them in a similar fashion as I did, but slightly different. You notice how they've got the Princess of Swords here earlier on in the reading. And then and they kind of mix these up just a little bit more. The Sun and the Moon are also earlier on in the reading. So with their interpretation, the way they interpreted it for love is they said that they went through some sort of heartache. Okay, so kind of the same idea as I had. But they had thought of it as an authority figure had come through and said that there was no point in having love. There was no point in feeling love and that kind of thing. And that they were a fool to even believe in love, because of this authority figure kind of imposing that thought on them. But then later on, they started seeing things slightly differently. They started seeing it in a different light. And they went through a spiritual journey, and that was kind of represented by the sun and the moon, or the stars and the moon there. And they went through a spiritual journey about how to think about love, that it kind of changed their thoughts on love. And so after that healing process, and after they went through that process, basically they've done the spiritual growth that they needed to do, And then that would end in a very positive relationship represented by these few cards here. And then the Sun card, that might end in a very happy union or marriage or that kind of thing. So it was interesting how they interpreted it, and we put them in slightly different ways. And so you can see how the different symbolisms on the card, as well as the different cards from different decks and the way they come up, and different readers will read them different ways. And I mentioned this earlier in the series, but it's important to realize that the cards are just kind of in a focus thing that readers will use to help what comes to mind when they look at the cards and how they interpret them, and what feelings and thoughts come to mind and evoked through that particular reader. And so sometimes certain readings aren't for us because that reader and you are on the same wavelength, or you know, that reader may not be in tune to what's going on in your particular life or what you need to hear. So different readers will interpret things differently, and that's the whole point of it, because the idea is that you're going to hit upon the reader and the reading that you need to hear, or interpret things the way that you need to see it at that moment in your life. And astrology is kind of the same way too. I've noticed that a certain astrology figure I really cared about said that he would only take on certain clients, and then when he took them on, it was immediately apparent to him why he needed that particular client, or when he had different readings done, that different readers, that the particular reader that he needed to have came into his life at the right time, kind of thing. And so that's true for tarot readings as well. And this is kind of just a good example of how the same exact cards in different ways or in different readers' hands might be read slightly differently. Now, when we go on to the career reading, we use the same exact cards again. And this was the cards that came through in the career reading. And this was how I interpreted it for career. I said there was a major upset in their career, possibly lost their job. That was kind of represented by these swords cards here, and that kind of thing. And that they were searching for another career. I kind of used that guide there, that they were searching inwards with these couple of cards and going through. And that there might have been a couple of different choices that they could make. They weren't sure which way to go. And that this was represented by them at the moment. One of them would use their intuition, represented by these cards here. One of them wouldn't necessarily do that. But that they would be guided by their higher self in knowing which way to go with the career, or which career to take, that kind of thing. And whatever career they chose, whichever way they go, they would be very passionate about it. And that was represented by these cards here. And that a person might come along that might want to create a partnership with them. Okay? So that might be useful to them at this point. And that they were going to put a lot of useful energy into this career, whatever career path that they've chosen. And it might possibly deal with spirituality in some way, shape, or form. And that was kind of represented by these cards and this card here. And that it would be very profitable and successful outcome. So the Sun card, once again, kind of came through as being the successful outcome that we were looking for. So that there would start off with some major upset. Maybe they were getting ready to have it or have already had it. And that they would be searching. And then there would be a couple of different options open to them. One of them might deal with spirituality. Also, they would use their spiritual gifts and intuition to help them know which way to go. And that there also possibly might be a partner in the offering, and that if they did this partnership, it might deal with spirituality or creativity in some way, and then that would be very successful partnership. So that's the way I kind of saw this as a career reading. Now, my colleague took it slightly differently and kind of grouped the cards a little differently. They first of all said that they were a very creative person. They took the stars and the moon energy and said they were very creative, which, you know, I kind of also took, but they said they were a very creative person. And that they wanted to move forward in their career. They're ready to move forward, and that's what these cards represented here. That they may have had their head up in the clouds. That they may have, you know, not been down to earth thinking of their career. They may have just kind of been way out there and just not kind of thinking where they were going. So they sought out a partnership, which was kind of denoted by these cards here. They sought out a partnership thinking that they needed a partner to help them be grounded and do what they needed to do. But but that person may have stifled them or stabbed them in the back or not been a very good partner to them in whatever way, represented by those cards there. And also they may have taken back an original idea that they had and taken it on as their own, that kind of thing. So just not a very good partnership, okay? But it said after they accept that they don't need anybody else to be good in their career, that they can go well on their own after they've learned to accept that, hence they've got the break here, that they could go forward and that they would be successful in their career once they realize that. So as you can see in the career reading, it is a much different type of interpretation based on the same type of cards than what was calling out to them and how they moved them forward. So, you know, in their case, you know, they said that they were creative and so forth, but then they sought out a partnership and that didn't work out very well. And in mine, I thought that a partnership might be very good for them. So it's interesting how you can take the same cards from the same decks and get different interpretations based on what goes forward. And that's kind of why I wanted to give these examples, because I wanted you to see that is why different readings will look differently, even when you only have 78 different cards that you can go through. Now there are other divination cards that people like to use. I often will use oracle cards myself. These are just an example of a few of them. Oracle cards sometimes will just have one word or a number. Sometimes they'll have a saying on them. And that just helps with the reading some. It might help focus the reading. It might help give specific messages to specific people in the reading. So like these just say fire and lake and have, you know, words like stillness on them. So then if you think, okay, of stillness, maybe it's time for you to be still, that kind of thing. Or this one just has a number and says journey. Okay, you might be going on a journey, or, you know, that kind of thing. So, but then these actually have whole different, you know, sayings. These are actually very similar to, you know, they have the world card and temptation card, so they're similar to a tarot deck in some ways. They have some of the same symbolisms as tarot cards, but those can be very useful. There's lots of different divination cards that can be used in a tarot reading, and they often can help focus the tarot reading and help it move forward, help give specific messages, or help direct the reading a lot of times. So different people use that. So that's just a different idea. There's, like tarot decks, there's literally hundreds and thousands of different ones out there. So, you know, you can get different ones that speak to you. There's angels and just pretty much anything and everything that you'd want to use. I've got a few different ones that I use in mine that I really like because they're useful and helpful in directing the tarot series. Okay, I really hoped you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends and family. Don't forget to leave me comments in the comment section of any future videos you'd like to see, or any, you know, this is pretty much concluding this basic series on tarot reading, but if there's any other videos or topics on tarot or any other spiritual topics for that matter that you would like to explore, leave it in the comment section. We'll see what we can do, and we can do that. I look forward to seeing you in future videos. Bye-bye.